Hi there, my name is Moose Man.
And I'm Rob.
What is $10 dinner? Basically, we go to the store, we buy only $10 worth of items, not a cent more, and using just those items and nothing else, we make a great dinner. So today we're doing a classical Southern dish. Chicken, green beans, and cornbread. Actually, fried chicken's more of a staple, but we're gonna bake it just to save on cost and to make it a little more healthy. For our chicken, we chose drumsticks just so we could make at least 3 plates, but thighs could also work. We splurged on fresh green beans instead of canned since we plan to cook them longer, and since it's our main side dish, we wanted to be a little bit better. Grabbed 1 brown onion to help add flavor to our beans. Cornbread was going to be tricky since we couldn't afford milk, so we grabbed some fresh jalapenos to help add flavor and texture. But we still needed the eggs. Total price after tax was just over $9. Besides salt and pepper, we won't be using any other ingredients outside of these items. The first thing we need to do is prepare our beans by breaking off the tips. This is because the ends are tough, and especially with this southern style, we really want them to be nice and soft after they're done cooking. Since there were only 2 of us, we only made about half of the bag, which was about 1 pound of beans. We need to get these beans going ASAP because we're going to want to cook them for about an hour. Add a generous amount of salt and pepper, and then add 4 cups of water. If you have it available, then use 2 cups of chicken broth and 2 cups of water instead. This will add a ton of flavor as the broth will cook down into the beans. If you add broth, add a little bit less salt than I did since the broth will make it extra salty. Set the heat to high and get the water boiling, and at this time begin preheating the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. While we're waiting for our water to boil, let's chop up our onion. Simply chop the onion into small pieces, making sure the pieces are big enough to be eaten easily, but small enough that you can get multiple pieces in one bite. You definitely want to use a brown onion here, so make sure you don't accidentally choose a white onion or the flavor will be completely wrong. We're trying to get a nice sweet taste into our beans, and a white onion will be way too harsh, as well as not cooking down in the way that we want it to. Get a non-stick pan and put your onion pieces in. You can heat up the pan a little prior to this step, but for the sake of demonstration, I'm starting it cold. While we couldn't afford bacon in our $10 dinner, chopping up some bacon pieces and cooking them in your skillet before adding the onions is the definitive southern way to do things and will add great flavor as well as the oil that you need to ensure your onions don't burn even if you have a higher heat. Since we have no oil, we want the heat to be medium-low, otherwise our onions will burn very quickly. We're trying to sweat our onions, not caramelize them. Keep them moving, but give them enough time to cook until they get glossy and start to turn translucent. By this point, your beans should be boiling away. Turn the heat down to medium-high to prevent your water from boiling off too quickly. After about 10 minutes of your onions cooking, add them to the pot of beans along with your bacon if you used it. Watch your beans as the water boils down, and when the water is nearly gone, you'll know that's when you turn off the heat. And again, this usually takes about an hour. Next, let's get our cornbread going. We're adding some fresh jalapenos to help add some extra flavor as well as get some of that southern heat into our cornbread. Since we couldn't afford milk in this budget, this is a great way to add some texture since our cornbread will be a little bit drier than usual. For even more flavor and moisture, add 3/4 cup of shredded cheese to the mix. Also, if you want less heat, use jarred jalapenos, as fresh jalapenos have a lot more heat and may be too spicy if you're not used to spicy food. We didn't end up needing 2 jalapenos for this recipe, so I'll save one for our chili later this week. Make the cornbread according to the package, adding water instead of milk if you don't have milk. Stir in the jalapeno pieces, but don't stir the batter too much. Cornbread batter should be slightly lumpy to allow for air bubbles to form inside the bread and keep it nice and fluffy. If you beat the batter too much, the bread will become too dense and not have the right texture. I prefer my cornbread to be like a cake, but you can also use a muffin tray if you prefer muffins to squares. Finally, onto the chicken. Since we aren't using any oil, I put foil in this pan to keep the chicken from sticking to the bottom or burning, and for easy cleanup. Pat the chicken dry with a paper towel and liberally apply salt and pepper to both sides of the chicken. seriously don't skimp on the salt and pepper, because that's where a lot of our flavor is coming from since we're not using a dedicated seasoning, and with drumsticks especially, we want flavor to get all the way down into the meat. Pop everything in the oven and bake the chicken for about 12 minutes and the cornbread according to the packaging, but looking for a golden brown top to indicate when it is done. The cornbread will be done first, so take it out and let it cool. Leave the chicken in the oven, and about the 12-minute mark, turn on the broiler to brown the tops of the chicken, being extra careful not to burn the chicken with the broiler. Around this point, our beans should be pretty much finished. Scoop them out into a serving bowl and leave the remaining liquid in the pan. You'll know if your beans are done if they're nice and tender. Unlike some other dishes that use fresh green beans, these should not be crisp and firm. They should be nice and soft. And with that, everything is done. Our chicken has a nice color to it after broiling, and our cornbread has cooled down enough to cut into squares. Make sure you let your cornbread cool at least 5 minutes, or else the squares might fall apart. Make a mess adding the beans to your plate, and with that, we have dinner. It looks good.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the cornbread because, again, we didn't use any, what's it called? There's no milk, so I'm curious to see if it's dry. It's a little dry. But considering we used water, they're pretty.
It's actually pretty good though.
Yeah, it's good. Let's see our bean. You know what? The fresh beans were worth it, I think. It's just a good side dish. It's nothing too crazy. And if we were doing it the true Southern way, we'd have bacon or smoked sausage or something. Mm-hmm. But I think for having a not just green bean side, actually doing the extra prep, adding the onions, and letting it cook for about an hour, they turned out really good.
Yeah.
I mean, the chicken was simple. It was tough to really brown the chicken properly because I had no oil on it. So I tried to broil it a little bit more, but it didn't quite brown as much as I would like. However, it's juicy, it's delicious. It's a very simple seasoning, but just adding enough salt and pepper.
Oh yeah. It's actually good. It's nice and juicy the way you want it to be.
I don't know if you can see that. Oh, look at that. There's juice dripping off it. Yeah. Well, this has been great. It's been fun doing a true $10 dinner with no compromises. Nope. Besides salt and pepper. Salt and pepper are the only things that we added beyond what we bought today. So if you have anything around the house, it gets even cheaper, and you can, do improvements a little more than $3 a plate.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. It's better than McDonald's, I think. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Way better than any fast food place out there.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, Moose Meals, and subscribe to Rob. He doesn't have a YouTube channel.
No, but I'll be here sometime.
In the future, when he does have a YouTube channel, I will link it because it's been fun. So thank you for coming on and doing absolutely nothing in this video besides talking and eating. This has been Moose Meals.
See y'all next time.